All right, man. What if Goku landed in the boys, the dark version? This would be episode 1, the beginning of a dark friendship. And yeah, so this is going to be my darker take on this scenario. And the reason I'm doing a dark version of this story first is because The Boys itself is a very dark comic. So I want to kind of keep that vibe going. So this version of Goku will be the Saiyan Kakarot, but I will do another version of this story in the future. Uh, but without further ado, let's get this story started. And let me know what you guys think and give me some suggestions on where y'all want it to go. So let's get to it. And hit that like button. So let's go. The air on planet Vegeta was thick with tension. Bardock stood over the comms console, his own blood dripping onto the metal floor. The vision granted by the last Kanassans was seared into his mind. Frieza grinning. Frieza's grinning face, a sphere of unimaginable energy, and a total annihilation of their world. His crew was already dead, and his rebellion would likely end as just a pathetic footnote. So all that was left was Kakarot. He stumbled into the infant's launch bay, his heavy armor scraping against the doorway, his son oblivious to the coming apocalypse, gurgled in his pod. Bardock's usual ruthlessness was gone, replaced by a desperate primal need for a legacy. He wasn't sending Kakarot to a weak world for just conquest alone. He was sending him to the only place that Frieza wouldn't think to look, a backwater mud pile of a planet, its inhabitants called Earthlings. But his vision had been different and slightly distorted from the original. The Earth he saw wasn't one of simple warriors and quiet villages. It was a world festering with commercialized false power structures. A world called Earth, but governed by a corporation named Vought. He input the coordinates with a trembling, broken hand. "Live, Kakarot," he grunted, the words foreign and thick on his tongue. He slammed the launch button. The pod hissed, then shot into the void. A tiny seed of genuine power hurled toward a planet of cheap imitations. Seconds later, a brilliant, terrible light filled the viewpoint. Bardock met it with a roar, his existence and the entire Saiyan race seemingly erased in an instant. Meanwhile, Kakarot's pod pierced the atmosphere of a new Earth, a fireball streaking toward a field in Pennsylvania, a herald of chaos possibly far beyond that of Compound V. The impact registered as a 2.1 magnitude seismic event. By the time the National Guard and men in unmarked black SUVs arrived, the crater was still smoldering. Inside the crater sat a bizarre spherical craft, its metal still cooling with audible pings. "It's not one of ours," a general muttered onto his comms. "And it sure as hell ain't Russian." When torches finally cut through the strange alloy after some hours, the air left the area. Inside, nestled in armor among biomechanical wiring, was a child. A baby with shockingly spiky black hair, seemingly defying gravity, and a tail twitching idly in its sleep. The soldiers aimed their rifles, but the child just yawned. Within the hour, a new presence arrived, a sleek black car with no plates. A man in an impeccably tailored suit, not a military uniform, stepped out. He flashed some credentials that made the general stiffen. "Vought International is here to assist," the man said, his voice calm and corporate. "Our biomechanical and advanced weapons division has protocols for the potential existence of extraterrestrial biological entities. We have the facilities to contain and understand what you've just found. It's in the nation's best interest." So the government, out of its depth and terrified, readily agreed. A deal was struck in hushed tones. Vought would take the child in the pod. The official report would cite a meteorite crash. As the Vought team carefully extracted the infant, one scientist noted his vitals. "His heart rate is triple a human infant's, and his grip has crushed one of the hands of our crew, so his strength is already off the charts in comparison to humans." They didn't know what they had, but Vought knew a new resource when they saw one. The Vought's facility was sterile, windowless, a labyrinth buried deep beneath Nebraska. They designated him Subject K. For 2 years they poked, prodded, and scanned. They quickly learned he was strong, far stronger than any infant, and his density was unnatural. The first breakthrough came by accident as a lab tech went to draw blood. He slipped with a diamond-tipped needle and gouged a deep cut within Kakarot's arm. The child wailed. They stitched it, expecting a long recovery period, but in just a couple of days the wound had not only healed, it had vanished without much of a scar. More importantly, the bio readings taken after the incident showed a 0.5% increase in his cellular density and a base metabolic output. A hypothesis was formed by Dr. Weissenberg, the lead scientist, authorized a controlled test. They broke Kakarot's tibia using a reinforced titanium hydraulic press. The child's screams echoed through the soundproof lab. They monitored him. The bone knitted itself in about 72 hours. Post-discovery scans confirmed it. His power had increased. A wave of exhilaration went through the observation room. They had discovered the ultimate biological engine, trauma-based evolution. They weren't raising a child. They were stress testing an extraterrestrial biological weapon. Every injury was a step toward an ultimate marketable power. The concept of Zenkai had been discovered, not by warriors, but by corporate scientists with clipboards and a complete lack of empathy. By age 7, Kakarot's world was 20 by 20 foot reinforced steel room. He knew no direct sunlight. He was shown no kindness and no touch that wasn't clinical or violent. His training, quotation marks, was a scheduled horrific routine. Hydraulic pressures would slam into his small body to fracture bones. High voltage electricity would course through him, searing his skin. They would deprive him of food, then test his strength and durability. Each time he would heal. Each time the numbers on their screens would climb, but something else was growing inside of him, far removed from the docile, oblivious Goku of another timeline. He didn't smile. He didn't speak much. His dark eyes, which should have held a child's innocence, instead held a simmering, intelligent rage. He understood the purpose of the pain. He knew the men in white coats were hurting him to make him stronger for their benefit. He had overheard them. He had seen the tests. During one session, as they prepared to lower him into a tank of boiling agents, he spoke, his voice low, steady, monotone. It won't kill me. Dr. Weisenberg looked up from his chart. We know, Subject K. That is the point. It just makes me hate you more, Kakarot said, locking eyes with the doctor. And it makes me stronger than you can imagine. One day your machines won't be able to hold me. The scientists exchanged nervous glances. The asset was developing an attitude. They increased the sedation in his food, but the spiteful seed had already taken root, watered by a constant cycle of pain. Then, one day, it was a containment breach. A soup-designated base with shockwave powers had blasted through his restraints and, in a panic, ripped the entire reinforced roof off the high-security wing in a blast of telekinetic energy. Alarms blared. The night sky, a tapestry of stars Kakarot had never seen, was visible for the first time. And then, he saw it. A perfect, brilliant, bright full moon. His Saiyan cells, dormant for 7 years, roared to life. A primal energy, ancient and terrible, surged through his small body. His heart hammered against his ribs like a drum. Biomonitors in the control room exploded in a shower of sparks. Subject K's vitals they're spiking. They're off the charts. What's happening to him? Kakarot fell to his knees, a guttural scream tearing from his throat. His body began to swell, his jumpsuit shredding. Brown fur erupted from his skin, his face elongated into a snarling muzzle, and his teeth became long fangs. In less than a minute, it seemed. Where a small boy had stood, now a 10-meter tall, monstrous great ape now loomed. Its high, glowing red eyes, filled with mindless rage. It beat its chest and let out a deafening roar that shook the very foundations of the facility. The staff's orderly panic turned into pure, unadulterated terror. The Ozaru was a force of nature. Its first swipe of a giant clawed hand turned the observation deck into a cloud of glass, steel, and pulverized flesh. The automated defense turrets that lined the ceiling opened fire. The high-caliber rounds did nothing but sting, fueling the beast's boundless fury. It grabbed a support pillar and tore it free, using it as a club to smash through the entire sections of the complex. Scientists and soldiers who had orchestrated his pain for years were now crushed underfoot and or vaporized by random blasts of concussive energy that came from its maw. The beast burst up through a hole in the roof, its roar echoing across the desolate Nebraska plains. It tore at the earth, uprooting concrete and communication arrays. For 20 minutes, it was a whirlwind of destruction, the embodiment of a Saiyan's true wrath unleashed upon its captors. Luck, if you could call it that, was on the world side, though. Vought had chosen this facility for its isolation. The rampage was contained within the several square mile sector secure zone. By the time the beast's energy was spent and the transformation began to recede, the facility was a smoldering ruin, a graveyard of this facility's ambition. The monster shrunk, collapsing into the form of a small, naked and unconscious boy lying amidst the carnage that it had just created. Kakarot woke up to the smell of smoke and copper. His body arched with a deep, profound exhaustion, but he felt different, stronger, more whole. He pushed himself up, blinking in the dawn light, filtering through the dust. He was surrounded by complete and utter devastation. Twisted metal, crumbled concrete, and dark, indistinct stains were all that remained of his world view. He felt no remorse, only a cold, quiet satisfaction. They were gone, the white coats, the machines, and the pain, and he let out a childish giggle. He stood on shaky legs and began to walk, taking off the lab coat of a dead man and wrapping it around himself. He didn't know where he was going, only that he was now free. His eyes fell upon the only structure that still stood, a heavily damaged administrative building whose upper floors were gone as well, but whose sublevels seemed intact. A set of elevator doors, dented and scarred, stood slightly ajar. The call button was destroyed. He pried the doors open with his strength, revealing a dark shaft. The elevator car was far below. A cold draft wafted up from the darkness. This was a way down, a way to see what else his captors had hidden from him. He grabbed a black cable, and with the agility of a monkey began to descend into the gloom, throwing caution to the wind. The lower levels were a maze of emergency lighting and blaring repetitive alarms. Breach protocol. Omega. Evacuate. It was a stark utilitarian hell that Kakarot now explored. He followed the sound of a faint, desperate whimpering. It led him to a heavy door labeled Special Development, Subject A. He ripped the door from its hinges. Inside was a room that mirrored his own, but smaller, and in the center, locked in a transparent-looking, vertilated cage, was a boy about his age. He had blonde hair and wide, terrified blue eyes. The evacuation had been so panicked, so complete, that they had left him behind, locked in a box that he didn't even know he was strong enough to break himself. The boy flinched back as Kakarot approached. Kakarot looked at the cage, then at the complex electronic lock on the side. He didn't understand the technology, so he did what he knew. He balled his small fist and punched the control panel. It shattered into a shower of sparks, and the door to the cage hissed open. The blond boy stared, trembling, too scared to move. Kakarot just looked at him, his head tilted. "You can come out now," he said. "They're all dead." The blond boy cautiously stepped out of his prison. He looked at Kakarot with a mixture of fear and awe. Who are you?" he stammered. "I am Kakarot," he said, the name the only one he had ever known. "Who are you?" "John," the boy whispered. "John Gilman." Kakarot looked around the empty, alarm-filled complex. "They left you here, John. The ones who weren't dead ran away. They left you in a cage." He said it not with sympathy, but with a cold statement of fact. It was a betrayal that resonated with his own experience. John's face crumpled. The fear was being replaced by a drawing, profound hurt. They had abandoned him. He was nothing to them, it seemed. Kakarot took a step closer. "They hurt me. They put me in a room and broke me over and over again to see what would happen. I think they were going to do the same to you if they hadn't started already." He extended a hand, not in friendship, but as a show of alliance. "We don't need them. We can be strong. We can be friends." The word was alien on his tongue, but the concept was clear. An alliance. Two powerful, abandoned children against the world that created and rejected them. John, desperate for any anchor, any connection, slowly reached out and took Kakarot's hand. The silence of the ruined facility was broken by the sound of approaching helicopters. Vought had regrouped. Soldiers in advanced tactical gear secured the perimeter, but they didn't point their weapons. They stood only guard. This was no longer a military operation. It was a corporate retrieval. Plus, they knew they would be torn to shreds by these subjects. A single figure walked calmly through the debris, stepping over wreckage as if it were a minor inconvenience. It was Stan Edgar, his suit pristine, his expression one of mild disappointment, like a CEO finding a messy break room. He found the two boys in the sub-level room, still holding hands amidst the ruins. He didn't smile, he didn't threaten, he simply assessed him. Kakarot. John, he said, his voice calm and authoritative. You've made quite a mess, but I'm not here to punish you. What was done to you was inefficient, short-sighted. He looked at Kakarot, seeing not a monster, but an unprecedented return of investment for the company. He looked at John, seeing the perfect malleable counterpart to that. The people who hurt you are gone. They were fools, and I am not. I represent the highest form of Vought. We can offer you structure, purpose, a world that will respect your power, not fear it in a cage. He gestured to the world above. Out there, you can be heroes. You can have anything you want. All you have to do is learn. Learn to listen to me. He presented himself not as a new jailer, but as the architect of their destiny. And in the eyes of the two traumatized, incredibly powerful children, that was a dangerously appealing offer. So that'll be the first episode of What If Goku Landed in the Boys, the dark version. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what suggestions y'all want. All that type of stuff. I like the comments, so go ahead and blow that up, man. Hit that like button, share all that, subscribe. You already know the deal, man. Memberships open. I got memberships open. I got super chats, all that. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.